So here is a really simple graph that displays how your performance develops over time as we build competence in a new skill. So we start at the stage of being what's called unconsciously incompetent. So this is where we don't know that we don't have a certain skill or that we even need to learn it. So at this point we have the wrong intuition and a complete lack of awareness. So I'm going to use driving a car as an analogy just to explain this a little bit easier. So let's say when you're a baby, we don't really know that we don't have the skill to drive a car, or that we will even one day need to learn how to drive a car, right? Because we are unconsciously incompetent. In trading, this can be likened to someone who doesn't even know what the financial markets really are, or what trading even is yet. They don't know what they don't know. But then we move on to stage two, which is where most new traders are. So they are consciously incompetent. So now you're aware that you don't have a particular skill and you're not yet proficient in it. So you have the wrong analysis. So this is kind of like, say, when you're a child or a young teenager, we start to become consciously aware that we don't know how to drive a car. We are conscious that we are unskilled in this area, right? So in trading, this is often where beginners start out. They are aware of what trading is, but they quickly realize that they have the wrong analysis and they don't really know how to trade correctly. So then entering into the third stage, we now become consciously competent. So we now know that we have the skill, we start to have the right analysis, but only with continuous and conscious effort. So when we are a young adult, potentially we have driving lessons and we finally learn how to drive. So we now know how to do it, but it still requires quite a lot of mental effort. When you're first driving, you kind of have to talk through the actions in your head, thinking about what pedal to push your foot down on, putting the car into the right gear, making sure to remember to check all of the car mirrors and to indicate before turning, etc. We are consciously skilled. We do know how to do it, but we have to keep actively thinking about how we are doing it, right, to try and do it correctly with a lot of mental effort. So in trading, this is where we start to regularly get our analysis right and we start to stop making common psychological errors. We start to consistently make money, but it requires a lot of effort to make sure that we stay on top of our routine. We have to work very hard at reviewing our trades and spend hours making sure our analysis is correct. But then finally, we enter the fourth stage where we become unconsciously competent. So now we don't even really know that we have the skill, just in terms of, we don't really think about it. It just seems easy and automatic. We have developed the right natural intuition. So after a few months or maybe even a few years of driving, right, it becomes pretty much effortless, right? We can hop into our cars, drive to our destination with very little thought of what we are doing. Now, if you think of, say, a mum, right, and she's driving home and she's got three kids screaming and fighting each other in the back, and she's holding her phone on loudspeaker in one hand and she's attending a conference call for her job, while she's shifting gears and steering the wheel with her other free hand, all at that same time, navigating through rush hour traffic. Right? And she's doing pretty much all of this just subconsciously. So for those that do drive, how many times have you got in your car from somewhere, you've driven home, and then when you arrive home and you pull up, you suddenly realize you have no memory of the last few minutes of navigating the roads towards your home. This is because the skill of driving, especially around your local roads, it's just so deeply ingrained to your subconscious. It's pretty much automatic. You don't have to think about it because you are unconsciously competent. So this is the ultimate end goal for our trading, where we just naturally have the right intuition. It's almost like having a sixth sense in the market. And trading then becomes relatively effortless because it is now a natural skill and you almost feel at one with the market. Your analytical skills are sharp and you are nearing emotional mastery. So my mission is to get each and every one of you to reach this stage where your trading becomes relatively effortless and you consistently pull money out of the markets month on month, quarter on quarter, year on year. So as you go through the lessons in the course, particularly the lessons in this module, you may initially think that, you completely understand everything. It makes sense, right? As you go through it, you've made detailed notes. But what I pretty much can guarantee you will find is if you come back and watch it again, right, even just a few weeks later, you will find that you will learn so many new things that your brain just didn't previously pick up on, as being that important. And this happens because essentially as your trading experience starts to unfold, your interpretation and understanding of the concepts that you're about to learn, that will change and develop too. So you will take away more lessons as your conscious evolution progresses through those stages that we have just outlined. So my advice is to come back to this module, rewatch and study these lessons continuously along your trading journey. More specifically, I would highly recommend that you follow this 3-step process. So the first time you watch a lesson, just watch it with your full attention. Don't do anything else. Put your phone on do not disturb. Chuck your phone out the room, right? Out of sight, out of mind. This is your time where you are investing in yourself. So let's be professional and take it seriously. So once you've watched it the first time, rewatch the lesson straight away after. But this time, I want you to take detailed notes. Then have a little break, right? Go for a walk, get some fresh air, do whatever you need to do, and then come back and rewatch the lesson for a third time. But this time, you want to be adding to your notes, anything that you may have not quite picked up on and potentially missed the previous 2 times. So you can essentially just, make notes of your notes. Now, if you do take the time to do this and you don't rush, I guarantee you it will make such a difference to the speed of your learning curve. And yes, although it will take you longer to actually complete the course content, compared to someone who only watches the videos once or even twice, you will actually increase your chances of becoming consistently profitable before them. Why? Well, because they are more likely to not have truly understood the concepts to the same degree that you have, and they will just end up having to revise the content at a later date, right, to start from scratch. And I see this happen all of the time. Remember, trading is a marathon, not a sprint. If you have ever watched Olympic weightlifting, you will know about the complex movement called the clean and jerk. And this movement requires you to be able to perform multiple compound lifts all in one go. It's an extremely complex and advanced movement, especially when you start to pile on really heavy weight onto the bar. So when you watch a world-class athlete perform this movement in a competition, they literally walk up to the bar and they just seamlessly throw it above their head, almost in one simple smooth action, without really even consciously thinking about it. And that is what it looks like when they're performing that on the world stage. But what did it take them to get to that point? Well, they would have had to spend years and years working on each individual part of that complex lift. They don't just walk into the gym and just constantly do clean and jerks for their entire session, just trying to pack on as much weight as possible. That is not smart training, and it will only get you so far before you either injure yourself or you hit a plateau and you can't lift any heavier weight no matter how hard you try. So instead, you need to master each individual part of the lift that makes up the whole. So you will need to practice and get extremely proficient at deadlifting. Then once you can deadlift the bar off the ground efficiently, you will then be ready to start to practice, cleaning the bar up towards your face. And then only once you've got great at deadlifting the bar and cleaning it up towards your face, now you're finally ready to be able to swing yourself underneath the bar so that you can get into a front squat position. Once you're skilled enough to get into that position, now you can spend the time it takes to get extremely good at front squatting that heavy weight, right? So that you'll be efficient enough at that movement to then be able to squat that weight back up in order to generate the power to press the bar over your head in order to finish the movement. So you can see that seamless performance of the clean and jerk on the competition stage, that was born from the athlete dedicating themselves to relentlessly and meticulously practicing each of those individual parts of the complex movement in order to be able to put it all together and then put in a great performance when it matters, when the pressure is on. Because then they don't have to think about it, they just walk up to it and they do it. They just perform. And this exact same process applies to training. You need to master all of the individual component parts that make up your strategy in order to be able to put it all together, to trade it successfully, and just to be able to perform to the highest level consistently in the live market. Because you are competing against millions, some of the brightest and smartest people in the world, right, playing this zero-sum game of the financial markets. And even when an athlete, when they lift a clean and jerk world record, they are still going to go into the gym the next day to practice each of these individual components of the lift. And that's no difference for us as traders. So even when you are consistently profitable, you will forever be a student of the market, practicing and refining your edge, and that is how you get ahead and stay ahead of your competition. If you don't build a solid foundation, your trading business will eventually crumble and fall over. So what are the component parts of our trading strategy, and in what order do we need to build upon them? Well, first, we must understand and master market structure. And this becomes before anything in your technical analysis. Every day when I approach the charts, it is literally the exact first thing that I'm looking at every single time. Market structure is king, no matter what type of strategy you trade. Because if you map your market structure correctly, you will find yourself on the right side of the market far more often than not. And then everything else, it flows from there. It's how you increase your strike rate and your reward to risk ratio with the rest of the concepts we build upon. We build upon that on top of our market structure once we have mapped that out first. So after you've got extremely comfortable with mapping your market structure, next we will build upon this using supply and demand zones. Now this is one of the main tools that we use to read whether large institutional order flow has entered the market and where large orders will likely be sitting in the market for us to then capitalize on. Now just utilizing market structure with supply and demand on its own and nothing else, so just those two concepts alone can provide you with an extremely profitable strategy. So you need to make sure that you are very comfortable with using these two concepts together before you even begin to think about moving on to any of the next sections. Now, I really do mean that. You can keep your trading extremely simple, mechanical, and systematic just using structure and S&D zones. Like that is literally all you need, and you can have a very profitable strategy. But eventually, when you are ready to take your trading to the next level, we can use liquidity concepts just to help us refine our trading, just that little bit more. But of course, we're going to speak about this in a lot more depth once we get to those lessons. But essentially, market structure, your supply and demand zones, and then liquidity, those really are the three main concepts that make up the backbone of the Photon strategy. So once you have learned how we put all of these three concepts together, you will then be ready to focus on how we actually enter our positions, but then of course how we also manage those positions once we are in them, so that we can maximize our risk and protect our capital in the most effective way, right, whilst maximizing our potential reward as much as possible. And that is the art of trade management, which you will kind of pretty much focus on towards the end. And that's essentially the next stage of a journey that you're now on within the Photon program, and this is what we are going to cover over the following lessons. Mastering these concepts, it can be a long road, and there are zero shortcuts. If there was a shortcut, well, it would be to stop taking shortcuts. Please make sure you have mastered each of those individual concepts before you move on to the next one, or it's just only going to make your journey longer and difficult in the long run. And what you will find is you're just going to have to come back and start again. Sorry to use another gym analogy, but I think it's a great one. But so often what you will see is, someone who doesn't have a very good squat technique in the gym, they will start trying to just add on as much weight to the bar as quickly as possible each week. And then one or two things always ends up happening as a result. Either they get injured because they can't lift that heavy weight with shit technique, or they just end up hitting a plateau and they just can't lift any heavier, with that rubbish technique. So then what they have to do is they have to finally drop and swallow their ego. They have to strip all of the weight back off the bar. They have to admit to themselves, that they're not ready, and they need to relearn the basic fundamentals of the movement. So they go back, they relearn those movements of the squat. They completely relearn the movement the correct way before they can then build it back up. But if they had just taken the time to get it right from day one, right, drop their ego, just practice, moving the bar up and down with no weight on it, or even without the bar, right, then they could have avoided all of that mess, stress, and wasted time. Photon is your last shortcut, but there are no more from here onwards. Now I just want to end this introductory video on one last point, and that is that you learn to swim by jumping into the water and swimming, not by sitting in a classroom, studying aquadynamic theory. So while up until now, we've covered some, background theory in this course, but it is my ultimate goal to get you into the pool as soon as possible. So the way that this module is structured is that you are going to initially learn a new concept, and then you will be set a task. So you will be set an exercise to then go and perform on a specific section of price action on your charts. And then after you have done that, and you've done that exercise, applying the theory that you've just learned, you're then going to watch the next video, which will be called a walkthrough. And this is where you can watch me perform that exact same exercise on the same section of price action, so you can compare your efforts to mine. But more importantly, you can hear my exact thought process as we slowly go through it together. So hopefully this should be a very effective and efficient way of learning the concepts. So it's not just all theory, but we're actually rolling our sleeves up together and we're getting stuck into it. So I'm genuinely buzzing for you to start the rest of this module, as let's be honest, this is where the real source is, right? All right, let's fucking do this, shall we?